Alright, I've been pretty aggressive recently, so I'd like to kind of tone down that energy a little bit and have it be a bit more relaxing around here. To that regard, I'd like to offer some advice to the writers out there. And I know this is going to seem a little obvious, to be honest, but I think it needs to be said because it's something that isn't put into words terribly often. When you're writing a story, your characters need to have a backstory. It doesn't need to be particularly long, and it doesn't need to be particularly complex. But you do need to know what it is before you start writing. See, no matter what you do, your characters will have a backstory. Even if you don't assign them one, your readers will. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can actively go out of your way to try to write a character with no backstory, and all you will do is force one. See, even a character with amnesia has a backstory. You just don't know what it is. Take Jason Bourne, for example. He wakes up, doesn't know who he is. All he's got is a bullet in him. You can take that bullet out. You can just have him wake up with amnesia. I guarantee you, 70% of your audience is dead convinced someone is trying to kill him. Why is that the case? Because that's what everyone else writes. See, you are not writing in a vacuum. There are other writers out there. So if you write a character that starts off a certain way, even if you assign them no backstory, they will be assigned one according to other characters who have already been written in a similar manner. So in this regard, it's very important for you to know what your character's backstory is beforehand so that you aren't given one that doesn't mesh with your story. Now, fortunately, you do not necessarily need to even put this backstory in your story. For an example of this, let's take my normal stomping ground, Star Wars, specifically Luke Skywalker, who begins episode 4 with the backstory of Farmer. I'm not joking. The only real accomplishment Luke has made in his entire life to this point is that he's pretty good at flying and he hasn't died yet. And yet, those two things are fundamental to the story of episode 4. You see, in the obvious department, if Luke couldn't fly a starship, he wouldn't be able to pilot an X-Wing and would have been shot down immediately. But in the inobvious department, if Luke were anything but a kid from a backwater town, he wouldn't have tried in the first place. You see, Luke's backstory of having quote-unquote no backstory means that he is completely oblivious to what is going on in the Empire. When Leia puts out a call for help, all he sees is some girl that needs help. Anyone that understands anything about the world at large for the Empire would have known who Princess Leia was. But not Luke. Luke just sees a girl in distress, and that makes him want to act. So when everyone else is busy worrying about the political or socioeconomic ramifications of helping this leader of the rebel cause or sitting imperial senator, Luke's just there like, no, it's the right thing to do. I've got to go do it. And if you change his backstory to anything but backwater kid, that doesn't hold true. So what happens if you don't give Luke a backstory? Well, he gets assigned one. And it could be anything from smuggler to pirate to soldier. Maybe he is a farm boy, but you no longer have control over that. And by losing that control, Luke will likely end up in a situation where he knows too much about the world. And that's going to ruin episode 4. See, if Luke knows too much about the world, he will become afraid of the Empire in a way that some bright-eyed farm boy won't be. So, I hope that helps you understand why it's important to know your character's backstory. So that way, something doesn't go awry. And don't worry, I'll get to how to write a good one later, but I'd like to keep these not 20 minutes long, so y'all have a good night for tonight.